Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Farhat Amin and I'm the author of the popular book Smart Single Muslimah, and on this channel I provide Islamic solutions to the challenges Muslim women face. Have you noticed how being a witch and all things witchy are becoming very trendy at the moment, especially amongst young teenage girls and young women generally? This is a phenomena that's starting off in America, and you'd be surprised to know that there are a number of women who now identify as pagans and are involved in witchcraft and Wicca. So that's what we're going to be speaking about in the podcast today and exploring the reason why, because it is very bizarre. We all know that witches and, witching in generally, it's been long part of popular culture, fairy tales, and it's always seen as having been something quite cute, and there's a villain who's the witch, but we know it's not real. No one ever believed in it. And there's also the history of old women in Victorian times, Shakespearean times and Elizabethan times were accused of being witches if they looked different, if they behaved differently, if they had a black cat, and then the poor things were, put in water, and if they didn't float, then they weren't a witch. But if they did float, they were witched, and then they were burnt. So we know all of these things, but there's something different going on now, which I'm not going to scaremonger and say every young girl is getting into this and is being affected, and that somehow you must protect your daughters or young women must control, these thoughts that they're having about manifestations and burning incense and candles, that it's all going to lead to witchcraft. That's just silly to say that. But let's just look at how it has become more trendy and that people are believing in it. So the material I'm going to use here are actual interviews from self-identifying witches. So in an interview for Teen Vogue, Moon Church member Molly explains the allure of witchcraft. She says, "My best friend and I were fascinated with matters of the occult," says college freshman Emma, who started a coven 3 years ago in her hometown in Oregon. "We loved The Craft," that's a witch TV show, "and the Ouija board came out at every sleepover. That was how we bonded. In high school, we started studying Wicca together, looking up stuff online and learning how to do rituals and spells. A couple of our friends would join us for gatherings, and it became like a sisterhood to me." So that's an actual young girl saying how she got into it. Let's just carry on. But why witchcraft? One reason they are naive, young non-Muslim women are embracing witchcraft is that there's an immense spiritual void in Western societies. We can't deny it. It's secular societies have removed religion and God out of the equation. And when they see that Christianity no longer makes sense and it's riddled with contradictions, we as Muslims know that, they've now not got any spiritual guidance. So what are they then turning to? And so being a witch allows you to pick and mix your spirituality, and there are no hard and fast rules. You can make up your beliefs and do whatever you want. Cast an obsession spell on your crush, invoke a curse on everyone you hate, and the nonsensical list is just never ending. By the way, this is all research I've been doing for my book, a new book I'm writing called Smart Teenage Muslimah, and it was for a chapter called Why the Quran is the Word of Allah. And the reason I was looking at would I explain to a young teenage girl that why the Quran is miraculous, why that is revelation, why we follow its guidance. And in doing that, I was then looking at what are young women turning to, and witchcraft just kept popping up. And so this is why I just really felt I wanted to discuss this in a bit of detail. So just to explore the subject, because I don't think, if I wasn't aware of it, I think many of you may not be as well. Let's go back to Molly, the Moon Church sister. So she adheres to a collection of beliefs rooted in pagan rituals, Eastern traditions of meditation, yoga, magic, and even artistic processes like writing and performing. This is all part of, the things she does as a witch. And what we need to home in on here is the key here is individualism. Few witches follow ancient pagan traditions to an exact degree. Instead, they develop a personal system that draws upon multiple sources. So that's what I meant by this pick and mix, individualistic spiritual journey that they're on. Being a witch allows you to do that because there's no book, there's no, codified book, there are no prophets. You're doing what you want, really. And they embrace all things witchy. And it makes perfect sense at the moment because teenage girls are more self-possessed than ever. You could even say self-obsessed. Today's young women are taught to value power, beauty and sexuality, but on their own terms, says Pam Grossman, author of What is a Witch? And even better, Grossman says you don't need a membership card to be part of a coven. Witchcraft is about magic, and at its core, that's about manifesting what you want. So you say, I want it, and it will happen. And then, you do certain things to make that happen. So you have this power. This is what they believe, this inner power. Conjuring your life on your own terms. With so many social issues swirling on top of our personal daily dramas, magic offers a sense of control in the chaos. Consider it a way to channel all the latent energy, anger, confusion, or grief into good. So that's very interesting. What Pam Grossman, What is a Witch? I haven't read that book. Maybe I will. But let's now move to, this is really interesting. There is, on TikTok, there is Witch Talk. It's a self-care subculture. And so it takes its cues from traditional witchcraft, alternative wellness, and it's fast becoming one of the most popular self-care trends online, with more people turning to mystical healing practices for answers in an uncertain world. Yeah, that's what it boils down to. So let's just, I found this quite mind-blowing, that you have, so I don't have TikTok, but I confirmed this with some young girls that, yeah, this is happening. So if you're on TikTok, chances are you've already scrolled past a witch talk video on your travels, and there'll be things like good luck spells, again, manifestations comes up, and protection potions. Now, witch talk takes its cues from traditional witchcraft, and you've got about 1.7 billion views to date, so it is pretty big. The trend comes out of a wider cultural movement towards the occult. So the occult means devils, evil things, dark magic, this isn't light-hearted stuff. This isn't the witch in Snow White, although she was pretty evil as well. She wanted to kill Snow White. Or this isn't, the good witch that you see on TV. But what you have is that people are, because they don't have clear guidance, because they've rejected God, they're turning to astrology, numerology, tarot reading, those cards that are supposed to tell your future, crystal healing, menstrual cycle rituals, moon water, it's so bizarre and made up. It's like Scientology, basically. It's like believing in unicorns. But people are following it, and young women are following it. Witch talk, like most other emerging trends on social media, is the real-time snapshot of human behaviour and mindset trends. And isn't it interesting how this is happening amongst young women who tend to gravitate towards a new trend? this is something you see, and there's this like a contagion that one girl starts doing it and others tell each other, and it just snowballs and gets bigger. So if you look at the current cultural landscape, human beings, especially the younger generation, are experiencing massive upheaval and uncertainty. This comes up quite a lot, that they don't know what to do. What better way to take back control than to align yourself with a movement that is about harnessing your inner power, controlling your own reality, and connecting to the higher senses and nature? That is witch talk in a nutshell. However, what separates witch talk from other mystical trends is that it originated online and is founded on a sense of community. There's an openness amongst users whereby they encourage one another to share spells, look out for each other, and teach newcomers, referred to as baby witches, how to become better witches. So it's a very supportive environment, and one of the reasons why young women are attracted to this is because if they don't feel welcome in churches, and they feel judged and they don't feel safe, they're creating their own religion. That's what they're doing. And it's a very easy religion. That's what I've noticed from what they're saying. So let's just hear from a couple. There's someone called Python Priestess, and she says, growing up in a strict Roman Catholic household, I turned to witchcraft at 14 years old after failing to connect with my religion. I would go to the local library and look for books under the metaphysics section. I taught myself about auras, clairvoyancy and tarot reading. This study was something I didn't share with anyone. It was my secret. I continued my spiritual journey in college when I earned a bachelor degree in philosophy and theology. It wasn't until I joined TikTok in 2019, after a friend alerted me to the Witch Talk movement. TikTok has forced me out of my comfort zone a little bit. When I reached 100k followers, I decided it was time to tell my family about my spirituality. And she continues and says, I teach young people to be self-loving, self-reflective, and being mindful. It allows young people to create a safe space to connect with themselves and their spirituality without fear of judgment or shame. And this is something you find that they will be self-taught all their things, and then they go onto social media and start teaching, in quotes, other young women, and they share their experiences, and it's about de-stressing, and it's like-minded, and it sounds very nice, it's very welcoming, it's very empathetic, but there is a big problem with this, and the problem is that it's nonsense. That's the problem. It's, like I said, it's unicorns, it's vampires, it's werewolves. It's ridiculous nonsense, but they're selling it. And what you find is they have big followings, and surprise, surprise, they sell these potions, and they're making money as well. It may not initially be a big sell, but they then promote products, they promote companies. It's just all the kind of witchy influencer culture. And so there's that element of it, that it's baseless and just completely, it's a complete joke. And that's why it's shocking that people are believing this. But they admit that they learnt their manifestations from Sabrina the Witch and Hocus Pocus. Can you believe that? That's what's even more just mind-blowing here. And I feel sorry for them, I really do, because they are unhappy, non-Muslim teenagers, desperate for hope and community. But they are delusional because they think they're prophets. They're acting like they're prophets, giving guidance. Here's another example. One of them said, after going through a dark time and starting my healing journey, I rapidly went to different awakenings and gained lots of spiritual knowledge. So I started sharing that with TikTok with my followers. And as my community grew, I realised helping others with their own spirituality and healing is something I'm meant to do. It's like her calling. So can you see, they believe in this stuff, and like I said, they start propagating it. But if you said to them, you're acting like you're a prophet, they'll say, oh no, I'm not a prophet, this is me just sharing and helping. But what they are doing is misguiding. That is what they're doing. And it's all done it all looks beautiful in Instagram and TikTok. And again, I can see the allure of this, but we just have to be, as Muslims, we have to call this out when we see it as they are a bunch of charlatans, and it's pagan, it's haram. And young women, if you are hearing this, you need to get smart and just realise how ridiculous is. There's one thing, that well-being and taking care of yourself, and then there's another thing, linking it to spirituality and using it as a guide, and taking that for guidance rather than thinking, okay, I'm going to stop. Does this align with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? Is this permitted in Islam? We have to, before getting enveloped in this cozy language and life-affirming language, we must stop and do that. And I think as parents, we have to realise that allowing our children to watch, I think the books are still, the fairy tales are still fine. It's very clear there's good and evil, but this new trend of glorifying being a witch and promoting it and saying that their actual powers exist, that is shirk. To say any human being has powers to do what only Allah can do, we have to be really careful that we don't encourage our children to start thinking that's okay. And in a nice, calm manner, we need to explain to our kids that this is wrong, this is not permitted. So we're not going to celebrate Halloween. You're not going to get involved in things that the root of it comes from, an un-Islamic source, really. And so really, just to conclude, and this is the conclusion I then discuss further in much more detail in my book, is that how, human beings, we cannot determine for ourselves how to worship our Creator, or even say that, because this is what they said, they'll, rather than God, they'll say goddess, rather than saying you even need to believe in a God, because that is what they, it is pushed. They're saying it's okay to believe in whatever you want, and that is dangerous. And what we need to, as I explained in the book, is the importance of taking guidance from the Creator, understanding that you cannot directly talk to Allah, and Allah communicates to us through messengers and through the book. So that's the next discussion to really be had once you realise that all this witch stuff is nonsensical. And it's also, we live in a capitalist economic system. Every country in the West has a capitalist economic system, and companies have realised there is a lot of money to be made through this whole trend of witchcraft, and the whole well-being industry is actually worth millions as well. So we need to make those connections and realise, okay, I'm not going to overreact. I'm not scared of this. I'm just going to understand it and realise that Islam, as usual, has a much better alternative than what is being offered here. And inshallah, may Allah guide all these unhappy, miserable girls who are turning to witchcraft. They say it looks good. It's all, fairy dust and moon and happiness, but it will lead them to. They will never get any solutions from it, because it's not. Like I said, it's human beings are making this up. So inshallah, may Allah guide them, may Allah guide us all to, and our children in particular, who they are more susceptible to these ideas. So inshallah, please talk to your, if you have daughters, if you have nieces, even if you have cousins who you can see they're starting to talk about manifestations and energy, and wanting to burn candles and saying, look, this, it's all harmless. It's not harmless. That's what we need to realise, and need to nip it in the bud. Inshallah, take care. If you would like to find out about my book and support me publishing the book, then please go to Launch Good. I've got the link in the description. Inshallah, my health is getting better, but it's just a slow process, the writing and the researching. So I'd really love your du'as and your support. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, let's end with dua. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha anta astaghfiruka wa atubu alayk. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.